Beis in the Lashon Kodesh from the Dvar Malchus, and we are by Ois Vav, and we were talking about to be able to understand Reishis Goyim Amolik, we have to understand the idea of Reishis as it is in Kedusha, and to understand the level of Reishis the way it's in Kedusha. We are speaking about the dargis of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama by a person in his Nefesh Elokis. And then afterwards, Chai Yechida we will explain. So Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, we start off with Neshama. Speaking about Neshama has to do with the level of Bina, understanding and godliness, explaining matters of Elokus and so on. Ruach is the level of the Midas that are in the heart, that are completely separated from and distinct from the intellect, even though it might be brought about through the intellect. And now we're going to talk about Nefesh. What's the idea of Nefesh? So again, line 4, page 8, Yud Beis, Ois Vav. Inyan Nefesh will be covered. The idea of the Nefesh, the level of the Nefesh is in the liver. The liver has to do with in the internal organs. The Chazal always speak about Moyach, Lev, V'Kovid, the brain, the heart, and the liver. So in a broader sense, they are symbolic of the intellect, the emotions, and the things that have to do with the most external thing. That's an internal organ, that's the most, if you will, that the Chazal referred to as more of an external type of organ. It's also the Rosh Tevis of Melech, that the person that has it in that type of order, his brain influences his heart, which influences his action. He's ruling. He's in control of his life. So he's saying the idea of kavod is shuvu inyan amaisa poils the idea of action. Shezeu ikara inyan. That is the main idea of nefesh. Af sheyesh b'inyanim nesafim, though there might be other components to nefesh. Kishem shnis bar leil b'negel neshama ruach. Just like we explained earlier concerning neshama and ruach. That ponim mazbira is the level of bina, is the true idea of neshama, even though it might include in it other things of ruach and nefesh. The same thing in ruach, the main thing is the midas, though it might include in it inyanim, having to do with nefesh and having to do with neshama. The same thing in the level of nefesh. The main thing is action and maisa poil, even though it includes in it also matters of pertaining to Ruach and Neshama. Will actually bring an example of what type of inyanim are included. Lisnaig ba'ofen the surmera, to act in a way of turning away from bad and doing good. Avasei toiv va'ad she'iyafshar liyos, until it's impossible to be ba'ofen acher than any other way, other than fulfilling the 248 positive commandments, and to negate and to run away from the 365 negative commandments. How very appropriate. We were just learning in Rambam the list of all of them, in case you're wondering what we have to run away from, what we have to run after. If you're returning aboid according to the will of the boyd. So that's the level of nefesh. Nefesh is solely about and completely devoted to doing Hashem's will in the Ramach Mitzasin Shasal Lois. But this itself also has its vitality behind it, the energy behind it. In the action, even though we said that the idea of nefesh is primarily about action, still in all, there is also the level of love and awe of Hashem, like it's explained in Tanya. Love is the root of all the 248 positive commandments. Without love of Hashem, we do not have a true fulfillment of the mitzvahs asim. Who is one that's truly fulfilling the mitzvahs aseh is if he is loving Hashem and he desires to truly cleave to Hashem. So therefore, love is part of the nefesh as well, even though nefesh is primarily about action, but since action is incomplete, the mitzvahs aseh is incomplete without the love of Hashem. So in nefesh there is also the level of love. And so too concerning the awe of Hashem and the fear of Hashem, says, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the awe and fear of Hashem is the root for the 365 negative commandments. So therefore, in Nefesh is included also Yirim. So still in all, Aval, but noise of Lakach Sham Maisu Poel the Kiyam HaMitzvahs. Leloy HaHidur Boifin Shal Kiyam V'chayis. In addition to the fact that actually doing the actions of mitzvahs without the extra care and beautification of the mitzvah in a way of fulfilling it and having vitality in it, it's possible to fulfill it without a love and awe of Hashem. Also when the fulfillment of mitzvahs is out of love and awe of Hashem. The primary thing is not the love and awe on their own. Rather, the love and awe is only in service of the mitzvah. How do I ensure that I'm truly fulfilling the mitzvah? I'm really having a kiyum mitzvah. I need to have it love and awe. So that's why love and awe can be considered part of the nefesh. But still in all, the primary part of the nefesh, the primary focus of the level of nefesh is the idea of action, of ma'aser poel. Even if I do it without love and awe, that's still the level of nefesh. So now, once we have concluded with what nefesh, ruach, and neshama is, so now we're going to lead to a higher level, to the level of Chaya and Yechida, as that is different and distinct from the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Zayin, line 23. All these matters. Neshama, that's located in the Shuvah Mayach, because that's the level of the intellect, so therefore it's located in the brain. Ruach Shabalev, the Ruach that's in the heart, because that's a level of emotions. Emotions for Nefesh are covered, and the Nefesh is in the liver, indicating that it has to do with the world of action. The Neshama is capable and must devote them to godliness. This is its mission in the world, in such a way that it came down here in this world. It descended for the sake of an ascent to be able to reach this level of devoting all these things to godliness. Behind this means to say, though the neshama, while it's down here below, is far from godliness, still in all, it has the capability to grasp and to comprehend matters of godliness, top of page Yud Gimel. In such a manner that the way it grasps these things is that from that it eventually descends and comes down into the emotions that's in the heart. And it doesn't remain just in the heart, but it expresses itself in action, and even to action. And in this itself, it's not limited by what it can comprehend. Not only is it able to comprehend, to grasp matters that are beyond than the bina level of the neshama, it's possible for the neshama to get hold of even those dargis that are higher than bina, the way it's not silas. For this reason, the command for the idea of understanding, comprehension, to know the God of your father, is similar again to today's Rambam. It says that in today's Rambam, it's the mitzvahs, the first mitzvah is to know that there's a Matzah edition. To know the God of your father, who this mitzvah that you should know the God of your father is not just on that level of comprehension and understanding up till the sphere of Bina and Atzilus, and all those concepts that are connected with the sphere of Bina and Atzilus. There has to be the study until a way of comprehension and grasp. Gam b'bchinas chachma, even in the level of chachma, the keser, and even in the level of keser, which is higher than chachma, ad l'mayla maylachul, till much, much higher. How is that possible? I can understand that because of my level of neshama, I can have to do with the level that's Bina can comprehend. But how can I go with levels that are higher than that? How can I reach to levels that are higher than that? So he says in line 11, the reason for this is both because the root of the neshama and Hashem's very essence. Since the neshama comes from Hashem's very essence, so its capabilities are to connect and to have an appreciation even on levels that are higher than Bina. And another reason is v'hein mitzad zeh she'atzmusi yisbarach tzimtzum es atzmei liyas mevin bebina. It's because Hashem constricted himself, concentrated himself to be understanding through the level of bina. So in other words, Hashem's very essence becomes one with the sphere of bina. Like we have in Pascal Yo, that Hashem becomes one with all the spheres. So therefore, in the spheres, I shall have Hashem's very essence. So therefore, it's possible for me to understand and grasp Hashem's very essence. How is it able to be grasped? Through the Torah, that it traveled and descended many levels, until it came down into the combination of physical letters that are written with ink on parchment. Why did Hashem constrict himself so far and lower himself so far? He's quoting here from Tanya. Because so to make Hashem himself available that every neshama should be able to comprehend him. And therefore, since Hashem invested himself in the words of Torah, it's in the capability of every neshama to reach in its matters of service all the way to Hashem's essence. The Oiza is an additional concept that the neshama has this type of koyach. There's another concept as well over here. He's saying, line 18, these three aspects that we're just speaking about. Whether the level of the neshama, it's in the brain. Also the ruach, the level of the midas, are in the heart. And the soul that's in the nefesh, that's in the liver, the level of action. Kshurim and mevarim pratim. We are associating them with specific limbs. The organ of the brain, the organ of the heart, the organ of the liver. Meaning, that they become enclosed in those organs. They're associated with those organs. To such a degree, by the power of the one who does the wondrous things, which is the Lashon, the Bracha Asher Yotzar, that the Mefarshim explain, that what is the Mafli Lasis, what is this great wondrous thing that Hashem joins a spiritual thing like a neshama with a physical body. And how does he join it? More than what he just said before, that they're enclosed in them, but they become one entity. The person is not a neshama or not a body. The person is a person, and the person, that one entity, is made up of a neshama and a body together. The very fact that it becomes one, these different soul powers, and they become enclosed in the different limbs. That itself is obvious that this is an inner soul power. An internalized, a soul power that permeates the person. Only a power that can become internalized, can come down to become enclosed and joint. Since this is a power that is internal, that has to do with being grasped and comprehended, by that very nature, that shows that it's already measured and has a boundary. It's understood that a person, through his service that's done by reason and understanding. Yesh lo shlita, top of page Yudalad al Zeh, has control over these things, over his nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Ubezeh he kol avidasi, and in nefesh, ruach, neshama is his entire avodah, shemutal olav achiyuv, that it's incumbent upon a person, the obligation, lifel, to affect and to influence, shaneshama varuach vanefshalo yukshurim belakus, that all these levels, his neshama, his intellect, his ruach, which is his emotions, and his nefesh, which is his actions, should be bound up with godliness. Lenatzel kol inyaneim lelakus, to use up all their matters for godliness. V'liyas mishlolim mikol davar she'ein lelakus, they should be totally negating and removed from anything that's not godliness. Because this is like our main avodah, this is also the reason why in Tanya there is no open reference to Chai Yechida. There is hints of it when he talks about Mesiras Nefesh, etc. But primarily, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya explicitly refers to only Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, because the Alter Rebbe is talking about the avodah pnimis that's incumbent upon every Yid. Now the Rebbe in Ois Ches is going to speak about the levels of Chai Yechida, as in contrast to Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, which is a Pnimius. The Chai Yechida is transcendent soul powers. Ois Ches, line 5. There's also the levels of Chai Yechida of the soul, that are called the transcendent levels of the Nefesh. They're not connected with a specific limb, in a way that's enclosed in that specific limb. How much more so, they're not in a way that they are completely unified with it. As we said before, that the nefesh, ruach, neshama not only becomes enclosed in the limbs of the body, but it comes entirely one by the koach hamaflilasis. Chai yechidam, it's not in his slapshus in the person, and how much more so, it's not in the level it becomes one with it. So he's going to explain the idea behind this is in his bar le'elsif dal bin nachach. It was explained previously as Dalit concerning Chachma Shnikras M'Shem Panim Me'iros V'Loi Panim Asbiros. Why is Chachma called by the term a luminous face and not an explaining face, or a luminous reason and not an explaining reason? Because Chachma is a light without a vessel. Behind what this means. Even though Chachma on its own also has a vessel, because if it's one of the 10 spheres, every one of the 10 spheres has Oiris and Kalim. But there are some that are more Oir-like and some that's more Kali-like. So, and perhaps this is going to be also similar to what he's going to talk about later on the Maimer, about Moshe Rabbeinu being, his body being transparent. So it's like he has a keli, but it's like the body is, that keli is not like a separate entity from him, or not something that could like cover over on his true nature. The same thing, the Kliya Chachma, even though there is a keli, that's keli the way from the Chachmas, and the Chachma type of experience is a keli, not a true idea of keli. In comparison to Bina, Chachma is entirely just oir. The keli is like so totally diffuse, so totally transparent, that Chachma is just panim me'iros. She'ene kasherim kli, that's not connected with a keli. Ukishem shulam mailam, and just like it is above, that Chachma datzilis is called panim me'iros, that's an oir, and the kli is practically non-existence. Kein hu gam lamata, so too it's down here below, that the level of Chachma that we're soon going to identify with the level of Chaya. So the Chachma of the person, as opposed to Bina. Bina is the level of Neshama. That's Mislabish in the level of the Mayach. Chachma, on the other hand, that's beyond vessel. That the level of Chachma is not connected with a particular limb. It's part of the intellect. Intellect resides in the brain. So he says in line 18, and what's always explained, that the place where the intellect resides is in the brain. It's primarily, when we're referring to the brain, the place that the brain houses the intellect is primarily the level of bina. As opposed to chachma is in a way that's transcendent and encompassing. How much more so concerning the level of will, that the will is definitely something that is not enclosed in the vessels of the body, and definitely not enclosed and joined with a particular specific limb or organ. So in a similar vein, just like chachma, and for sure ratzon is not enclosed and joined with a particular limb, rather it's something that remains transcendent. So too, that's the level of the neshama that's called chaya. It's the level of chachma. Like it says, the chachma will give life. So from this we associate that chachma has to do with the level of chaya. Meaning, so right now he explains right away this transcendent nature of chachma and why it doesn't identify with a particular vessel. She says, it's not like normally intellect, like in bina. It comes down the way it's understood and comprehended and grasped. It's only the way the intellect is only a point. And it's sometimes even beyond just being that point. Until the way the Alter Rebbe writes in chapter 35 in Tanya B'Shem Moedam Rava Magid. He says it in the Hagah, in a note inside the Tanya, in a gloss. He says the name of his Rebbe, the Mezritcher Magid, Shebechinas HaChochma Hi, top of page Tezvav Mashu Hu Levadi Hu Vein Zolosai. That Chochma is the level of appreciating that there's nothing besides Hashem. Chachma is all about not being a separate entity. Its entire being is about not being. Its entire being is about being in a state of bittul. Not like bina. Understanding means, when I try to understand something, it means I'm coming here with my entity, who I am, and I am approaching whatever idea, and I'm trying to understand it. Chachma is about bittul. It's about not having myself be involved in it. And as we see, even the flash of Chachma is also that type of way. It's not about me, it's the flash like overtakes me. So therefore, if it's a state of bittul, it's not about keli, it's not about being enclosed in a particular vessel, a particular organ, a particular limb, and even the level of the brain, but rather it's a state of bittul without kli. It doesn't have to do, it's a level of that's transcendent and makif. And if it's that way concerning chachma valachas kam v'kama, how much more so shekenu b'negel b'chinas hayichida, it's also the same thing. How much more so that yichida is transcendent and doesn't have to do at all with any particular limb or organ. So the Rebbe is going to go on to explain more about this idea. Line 5, more specifically, more in detail, this bittul of chachma, which is the level of the chai of the soul, that appreciates how Hashem, there's nothing besides Him, which means I am nothing either. The chachma itself is appreciating that there's no I to appreciate. He's going to explain the difference between the way Chachma looks at Hashem and the way Yechida looks. The fact that Chachma has to negate and appreciate that there's nothing besides Hashem, that means there could be a possibility to think otherwise. There could be room to say, you know what, there is Chas v'Shalom something else. The same thing, the way Chachma refines things, it's also in such a way that there's something that needs to be refined. So it's something else, but Chachma brings bittul to it. Like the statement in Kabbalah, b'Chachma is beriru, that through Chachma everything becomes refined. Though Chachma affects the refinement, yesh mitzias There's something, an entity that we need to refine it. But only because of the advantage of Chokhmah, the quality of Chokhmah, that it's all about bittul, there becomes a true bittul, a real bittul. There's still a need of something that has to be refined, or to nullify the yesh. From this we must say that there is a level over here, that this is a level, the level of Chokhmah, even though it's total bittul, but it relates still to an existence of a yesh that needs to be refined. And we're going to speak about different levels of bittul tomorrow. A bittul which is beyond any connection with the yesh, or the bittul of Chokhmah, which even though it's totally bottled, but it needs to be mevarer the yesh.